Go home, go hard, go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home, go hard, go home. Yeah, these championship rings on my hands now. In my head I'm top 10, yeah, that's hands down. You a squad, know you're looking man down. Funny how foes turn to friends now. Drive a race car like a Atari now. Call filling up, I need product again. Treat the business like a playground, might slide on you. Don't me wrong, might slide on you. Do a backflip, cause I'm mad rich. I'm the definition of what that is. Go hard, go home, go hard, go home, go hard, go home, go hard, go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home.
What up, Longhorn Nation? It's your boy Tim Williams, and I got my guy, the Uncle Gandhi, aka Harish. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? What's going on?
So, we are officially in fall camp. Round of applause. Where's the soundboard with the applause? Man,
Man, we need to get one of those.
we need to get one of those. Um, like always, we welcome you to the Fan Battle Longhorn Sportcast. Of course, like always, I want you to make sure that you go ahead and follow us at fanbattlesports.com. Like always, follow us on Twitter. Longhorn Fan Battle. You can find us there. We chat it up with you guys. We like to talk Longhorn sports with you. Also, make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe. Whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on Instagram, wherever you're at, make sure you follow us through all of the multi platforms that we are streaming to live currently. Man, with that being said, getting right into fall camp, we're gonna skip the NCAA news. It's been a slow week. We're gonna jump. Actually, it hasn't been a slow week. I'm telling a story because we can cover
Okay.
this. We can talk about Arizona possibly joining the Big 12. I
Yeah.
know you care, but because we're making a mass exit, but that is big news. We did discuss on what was going to happen last week with the Big 12 kind of getting a boost in teams with Colorado returning to the Big 12. We both know that we both know that USC and UCLA both packing it up and going to the Big Ten next year. So that is somewhat of some big news. I could definitely see Arizona and Arizona State hightailing it out here to the Big 12 and the Big 12 country. I think it just boosts the conference a little bit more, makes it a little bit stronger. Now, I don't necessarily know what's going to happen with Oregon, Washington, and Oregon State. But hey, we never know. It's on a week to week basis. We got to keep up with these things. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? We're in a space now where teams are scrambling, right? There's been
Right.
rumors that Washington and Oregon are potentially, looking elsewhere with the demolition of the Pac-12. Utah's come up in some recent
That is true.
news. Apparently, there's a bidding war between, and we talked about this a little bit last week, right? There's a bidding war
Right.
between the SEC and the Big Ten, maybe the Big 12. Before we jump on that, though, I just want to say real quick, because I was on Twitter today, because, and I
Okay.
don't call it X, I call it Twitter, because that's what
Right.
it is.
It's what it is.
And Utah fans have really been pumping their chests lately.
They have every right
Um,
to, if you ask me.
well, yes, and as far as like dominating the Pac-12, absolutely.
Right.
But the one thing is like they're pumping their chest around the Big 12 and how they're gonna, if they come to the Big 12, they're gonna make the Big 12 big, and they're the big dogs of the Big 12, and Texas and OU are toxic.
Okay. All right. Well,
Listen,
let's calm all that down.
yeah,
Let's
listen. Here's the thing. Texas and OU made the Big 12. Let's just be honest. And
right.
these are facts, right? These are former AD for Texas, I think maybe former AD for OU, left the Southwestern Conference and started the Big 12.
Right. You're exactly right.
Late 90s, like
96.
96, yeah.
96. Yep.
So, yep. So let's pump the brakes on Utah. Thinking they're big dogs of anything, right? They're gonna come in. They're doing well in the Pac-12, right? But if they come to the Big 12, things are gonna be a little bit different. They don't have the recruiting following as of yet, right?
Right.
So let's not pretend like these guys are going to come in and they're going to run the show. And no, Texas and OU is not toxic for the Big 12 because
Right.
Texas OU made the Big 12. So, but I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Right. Okay. Well, like I said, we don't necessarily know what's going on now. Utah, you guys gotta. I do like Utah. I think Utah is a solid football team. They've rattled off some really, really big wins in the last 5 years. They're competitors, and they will thump you if you come in there tiptoeing. I don't know if they're going to bring any relevance to the Big 12 once we leave. However, I could see them if it does go down to where the Big 12 does happen to partner with, Utah. They are, to me, they are the top contenders. Okay, unless somebody like Oregon jumps in there, unless somebody like maybe even Washington, if they jump in there, um, I would say the road to the Big 12 championship, if that were to happen, would definitely fall uh, upon Utah. I would think they would be
Yeah,
favorites. I think it would actually do a really, really good for the school as far as getting recruits, getting people to come in. They already recruit very, very well. They also do very well in the transfer portal. Like we got to call a spade a spade. Not only is recruiting from a countrywide aspect, but you also got to look at that transfer portal to either strengthen, provide depth to maybe a weaker position. So I think that this is very much a possible thing. So we'll see what happens. Again, stuff has been coming out really, really quick. It's almost really hard to just cover everything and to keep up
yeah.
with everything. But we'll do our best here at the Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast to make sure that we keep you guys covered with the latest NCAA news and the latest Longhorn news. Keep it locked in because we are the Longhorn favorites for your Longhorn sports news.
So the one thing I want to call out real quick, and I think this is interesting. I just want to see this happen.
Okay.
Keep an eye out for UTSA.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the reason why I say that is with Texas gone, right? The Big 12 has lost its presence in Central Texas.
Right.
You have Baylor, and they're kind of central. But if you're talking about building, right, and you want to get into the roots of Texas, Houston helps them a lot.
Right.
But you're still missing
TCU?
Central Texas, right? TCU helps in Dallas. UTSA is interesting. I think Jeff Traylor is there to build, and I get upset all the time about losing Jeff Traylor. I thought that was a big loss as an assistant coach for Texas.
Right. Right.
And
he left.
And so I think he left late in the Tom Herman era, if I'm not,
Right.
Or yeah, Tom Herman era.
Yeah.
Pretty much is. I don't know if it's pretty much as Tom Herman got ousted. He pretty much left, right?
Right.
I think UTSA is interesting. I think that gives another footprint for the Big 12
Right.
To grow in that area. So I think that's interesting. So just another school. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Mhm.
I don't know even if they're interested. They might. Are they a G5 right now? Are they in the Mountain West?
I think they're Mountain West.
Okay.
Wait, no, Utah?
No. UTSA.
UTSA. They might be Mountain West. They might be Mountain West.
They could be. They're in one of those smaller conferences right now.
Right. They might be in the American Conference as well.
Oh, there you go. The AAC, the American Athletic Conference.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're in that conference here. So that's probably a school I'd keep an eye out for, especially if they keep playing at a high level.
Right.
In Division One. So that's probably a school to look out for. There is UTSA. But anyway, who cares about UTSA? Who cares about Utah?
They've gotten significantly better over the years as well.
They have. And then, like I said, Jeff Traylor's there, hopefully to build that program, and that'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Right. Well, I guess it's that time. We've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. Fall camp is here. We're currently on day 2 or day 3?
Day three.
Day 3.
It started on the 1st.
Right. So just to kind of go over what have you been seeing, what have you been hearing in regards to fall camp? Because I've been hearing some things in regards to fall camp. I also want to talk about the Chris Long interview, as Chris Long interviewed he interviewed Coach Sark today he interviewed Coach Sark right after practice. So I definitely want to talk about that because there were some key elements that were brought up in there that I myself, as a former football player, I really like hearing. And this is what I want to hear from the top. Like you always like you base your program based off of the head coach and what they're doing, and if this is really what he is intending to do and what he is implementing at Texas still, even in year three, like this is to me what he's saying and what he's presenting it and how he's team building is really dope. So what have you been hearing so far since the fall camp has started?
Yeah, so I haven't seen the Chris Long interview, but I do want to start with Sark and his opening presser.
Okay.
Um, and the thing that stuck out to me to where I feel like this team is ready is there's a quiet confidence in this team, and we talked about it during Big 12 media days, right?
Right. Right.
The want to be the head honcho. They know they've got the talent, right? Sark said something that really stuck out to me. It was basically like Texas is, we want to be the front runners, right? We want
Right.
people to catch us, and we're not going to sit back and wait for people to do that anymore.
Right.
We're going on the offensive, right? So we're
Right.
coming for you, right?
Right.
That tells me that Sark is confident in his team,
Right.
right? And obviously he's mentioned his guys, Quinn,
Right.
X, and on our defensive side, Jalen Ford. They've got these pieces,
Mhm.
A.D. Mitchell, Jatavian Sanders,
Right.
Kelvin Banks. They've got these pieces where I think Sark finally has his guys.
His guys. Right.
This is his first year with his guys, and his guys have been in the system now for at least 2 years, right? This is Quinn Ewers' second year in the system. No injuries,
Right.
taking all the snaps, showing that he's a leader. There's a clip out there where it has Quinn leading the stretches on opening day. Actually, and so this is day 2. I said day 3 earlier. This is day 2. They started yesterday.
Okay.
And one clip that resonated was Quinn leading opening stretches and going out there and getting the guys ready. And I think that shows wonders, right? He's coming to the forefront. He's coming to the front. And he said, hey, this is my team, and
Right.
I will be leading us. And again, we're hearing and seeing all the right things.
Right.
Now, whether that translates, we'll see. That's still yet to be seen.
Mhm.
But we shall see what happens with that.
Right.
So that's one thing that stuck out to me. As far as we haven't really seen a lot of clips. I
Right.
think
No,
earlier
we have
today
not.
I shared a clip on Twitter today, X, whatever you want to call it. Again, follow us on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, at Longhorn Fan Battle, LH Fan Battle there. And the clip was with all the quarterbacks throwing, and there's a couple things that stuck out to me.
Mhm.
Number one, I've always wanted to see this thing that you like to call the flick of the wrist, right?
Right.
When you're throwing, period, right? Are you flicking it? Are you finessing it? What are you doing with the football? Are you spinning it? And I think we're finally. I saw Quinn throw a pass and I saw a little bit of that flick, right?
Okay.
One thing that I'm curious about, and you probably won't see now until we see some 11-on-11 footage, is his footwork, his
Mhm.
presence in the pocket. I
Right.
think there's still a couple things that we want to see. And again, it's only day 2. I don't expect a lot coming
Right.
out, but I think we're starting to see some stuff.
Right. So, and to kind of chime in on that, I have been, I don't know how much I've talked about velocity with me and you when it comes to just getting a ball out. I don't remember a time where I didn't see Quinn Ewers without the pads not being able to throw. He can throw, he can lay it on you. You know what I mean? We know he has that velocity where he can throw the ball and it come out hot. But there was times and maybe even a couple of games that we may have attended where I was explaining to you where like at certain point in times there's a point where you want to get that ball, through traffic, right? And that's going to take some
Yeah.
velocity. You're going to have to get in there, you have to plant that foot, You're going to have to let the ball go at the top of the release. And there at times it was not there. Now, for me personally, what I've seen throughout the year is that it wasn't happening on a consistent basis. It would happen, but not on your third and shorts, right? It wasn't happening on a stretch on a streak to the tight end, right? Where you need to put the ball, you need to keep it in stride, you need to put it on a seam, and you need to just let it rip. There was times where I didn't see that. Now, there are times I would say in Oklahoma against Oklahoma, Quinn was good. Quinn was fantastic. But there were times in throughout the year. The one game I think about is the TCU game. Quinn drops back. Xavier's open, wide open. He throws the ball and he just it just doesn't get there, or he
Yeah.
overthrows. It's like he put too much on it, where he could put a little bit more velocity on that ball, and that ball will hit him in stride. Because we know Xavier Worthy's got top end speed. We know this for sure. We've seen him do it. We've seen him take a screenplay, and we've seen him run 75 yards you know, on the first
Oh
play.
yeah.
So we know
Yep.
it's there. We know he's got the big play ability. We also know about Jatavian Sanders. We know Jordan Whittington can catch literally everything. So we know it's there. It's just, is it going to be consistent? One other thing that I'd like to kind of get a little saucy on is, and I've never been a quarterback, but what I've always noticed is that the quarterbacks in the type of system that Stark is implementing, you need to get the ball out before your receiver gets out of his break. Like
Yes.
you need to, it needs to be there. So if you're
Yep.
coming and you're running a hitch, by the time he runs and breaks down and turns around, that ball needs to be right. I mean, right there where your face is, so you can catch the ball and make a play. And from what I've seen and what I've heard is that that is actually happening. So I think
There is a still shot,
right,
and I don't know if you've seen it yet.
right.
Where
It was
uh,
one you retweeted earlier
yep,
from our Twitter account, and
yep,
yeah, it looks good. He was coming out of his break. That's exactly what you want.
the ball was already out of his hands, on the way to the receiver as he was coming out of his break. Right.
Right.
That's what we want to see from Quinn Ewers.
That's timing,
That is,
chemistry.
yeah,
That's what
yep.
all that comes into play.
And
It's
I think a lot of that comes from comfort too, right?
right.
He's
Understanding the
comfortable in the
playbook.
system.
Right.
He knows the playbook. He's been in the system. He's seen these defenses before, including his own in practice, right?
Right.
So uh, I think Anwar from Orange Bloods mentioned earlier
Mhm.
last year in the spring, right? During spring break, whatever. Quinn Ewers was out in Mexico having a good time on the beach,
Mhm.
partying it out.
Right.
This year, Quinn actually took a lot of time to read his playbook, understand the playbook, work
Right.
out, do the things that he's, eat right, do the things that he's supposed to be doing as the leader of this team
Mhm.
to hopefully do what we call the second year lead,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's big, right? And we always talk about the second year leap in Sark's system.
Right.
Jalen Hurts had it.
Right.
Was Bryce Young under Sark for you? No, he wasn't. He was in year one.
Right.
But we talk about these guys, having that second year leap, and again, everything is being said right. Everything is being looks of it are being done right.
Right.
Now we need to see if we can maintain the consistency of that and
Right.
see if that continues to elevate for sure.
Right. Yeah. Right now, everything in fall camp looks real pretty. Everybody's going at 100%. There's no injuries. Thank God there was no fall camp. One thing I really hate, and this goes for any football team, it doesn't matter if it's college or pros, you don't want to see your best players, whether it's on any team, you don't want to see them going down early.
Yeah.
So luckily there was no reports of no major injuries or anything like that. Everybody got out of there healthy. Everybody seems to be motivated.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that I kind of want to backdoor on with the situation in regards to the opening presser. They have taken what is called a John Wick mentality. And for those who have not seen John Wick or familiar with the John Wick series, John Wick is a contracted killer. And so,
Yeah, that's what he is.
yeah, if you're going in there with that type of mind frame, then okay, that's not something you just got to talk up. You literally have to back that up. So if you're going in there hot and you're backing it up, I'm all for it. If you want to go in there with a killer mentality, that's how you're supposed to do it. But that has to be on all aspects. That needs to be on offense, that needs to be on defense, that needs to be on special teams. Because you can't have the offense with a killer instinct and then the defense playing like poo. And then you got your defense playing great, your special teams is playing great, but your offense is playing like poo. You can't have that. You gotta have it all across the board. Everybody has to be on the same level. So yeah, I like what I'm hearing. I like what I've heard from people that are also talking in regards to what they've seen. We haven't heard any updates about the actual uh, open practice or if there's even going to be one. If there's not going to be one, I'm totally fine. Um, I have no issues with that. I think that's really, really good. If they want to keep it tight knit, Sark might be wanting to keep up with, he might want to open up that playbook, so that people can get ready for game day, instead of just running the basics. So, which is that vanilla play, the traditional drills, the traditional routes and things like that. If he wants to keep it in tight, keep it private so that he can open up that playbook so that they can be ready, I'm all for that.
Sure. You got a comment here, and I think from a Texans fan battle, appreciate the comment. I think everyone is sleeping on the Longhorns. They killed it last year with a lot of injuries.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. That's another thing to call out, right? People forget Quinn Ewers last year coming in as a technically a second year freshman, right? He redshirt.
Right.
Quinn Ewers, took his senior season off. He reclassified and entered Ohio State early. Really didn't do much at Ohio State besides a couple practices, so I didn't get to see a lot of the field. Right. And then of course he transfers to Texas, right? Injures his shoulder.
Right.
Has to learn a whole new offense. Is in there in the spring, in the middle of a QB battle, so isn't really focused in.
Right.
The QB battle with the infamous Hudson Card Quinn Ewers QB battle, which is about like the sixth QB battle we've had in the last 10 years.
Right.
So he doesn't really have that focus, but I think this does a lot for Quinn's confidence. He knows he's the guy.
Right.
He doesn't have to worry about somebody breathing down his neck.
Right.
Right. He went to the offseason, got a chance to get fully healthy. No injuries, thankfully. Right. Shoulder is recovered. Injuries he suffered in high school are recovered.
Right.
He's completely healthy, and he is the guy, and I think he's showing a lot of that. Right.
Right.
And then we'll just see how the offensive line pans out. The one thing I did notice in the offensive line, we got some big boys.
Yeah.
Cam Williams, who is fighting for a guard position.
Right.
That's a big dude. And
he is.
And he's a big dude, and being a big dude is one thing, but his one thing I've heard as far as him being a big dude is his footwork is really, really nice.
Right. He's big and nimble.
So 6'7", 370, maybe I think is what he is.
Yeah,
so he's up there. So he fits what Sark wants there on the as far as offensive linemen go. He wants big boys on both sides of the line.
Right.
The other thing that I noticed was obviously Vince Young was out there this week, today I believe, and he was pointing out players that were walking instead of running. This is no longer a walking mentality, right? You run to the huddle, you run for the next play, you run to the next area, you run to your, you run to your position drills. Everything is done with a sense of urgency.
Right.
And it's not to it's not panic, right? It's a
Right.
sense of urgency. It's a want to be better and a want to get there faster to be better. And I think it's a mindset change that I think is finally starting to flow. So we'll see how that pans out as things go
Right.
along.
Right.
But I do think that's really important and to call out there.
Right. To quickly to segue into the conversation or the interview that Chris Long and Coach Sark had earlier today. Um, it's a culture change, right? So Sark yes, he's only been there. He's been there for 3 years, and most people would say, "Hey, well, you should already have your you should already have your culture set in place." No, 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 no. It does not work like that. You have to get the right people in the right positions, whether they be coaches, players, um, staff. You got to get those right people in the right places in order to implement your culture effectively. So, um, in regards to the interview, he was talking about what his main focus was over the offseason. Excuse me. What his main focus was over the offseason. What he explained is that one of his main focuses was actually getting familiar with all of the players, not just some of them, but literally all of them. He explained that he broke groups down to where he had some freshmen, sophomores, and upperclassmen all together in one group, and small groups where they had either a captain or somebody from the staff over that small group, and they were just getting to know each other. And they talked about whether like politics or religious beliefs or things like that, just so that they can understand each other, so that they can empathize with each other if there's anything that they want to share, if they want to be vulnerable, if they want to just get to know each other on more, get to know each other a little bit more on a personal level. I thought that
Yeah.
was dope because you don't really hear that too much. Usually, when it comes to football, and I think this starts from Pee Wee on up. The people you play with, the people you know the best, are the people you are in the trenches with. So linebackers, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, QBs. But you got to also think there's not 12 quarterbacks. There's 3, 4 maybe. You know, the kickers, there's usually like 1 or 2 and a punter. There's not a lot. So when you take those groups and you jumble those groups all up, you do build a sense of camaraderie because you're not just with your position. And although you should be with your position, and you should know your position and your position groups, you should have a great relationship with them. You would be able to uh you will be able to communicate better in the long run by hanging out with somebody that doesn't play your position. I know
Right.
I know for a fact that when I was playing semi-pro for the Austin Game Breakers, former defensive backs coach Brian Ware, I got to hang out with him a lot. We talked, we played video games, stuff like that, and that information and that relationship transitioned over to the football field, so that he can look at me and I can know what I need to do. Hey, scoot
Right.
over. Hey, we're gonna call an audible. You need to stunt with JD. You need to stunt. Y'all need to do X, Y, Z. He was able to communicate with that almost to a point to where it was nonverbal. And
Right.
that plays a big deal. So what I'm looking for is like, how does that transition from the locker room to the field? And
Sure.
that's one thing that stood out for me. I really liked what he had to offer in regards to that. He's also talked about the portal and how the portal has played a major significance, within the locker room, and he spoke on it even on the Pivot podcast. Like, you know, it's a gift. It's a real major opportunity to play at the University of Texas. You decide that you want to go and jump in that portal, ain't no coming back. That's
Right.
that's no nonsense. There's not going to be,
Right.
oh, we don't. I want to go and check and see what else I can get. I want to see and what else is out there for me. No, no, no. If you jump in there, it doesn't matter who you are. See you
Yep.
out of there. So that also brings a sense of urgency, and I
Right.
think that is
Well, it's not. Don't mean to cut you off there. It's not a sense of urgency in that regards, right? That is a coach saying, "Hey, everyone that's here wants to be here. There's
right,
no doubts,
right,
right?
right,
I'm building something, and I only want to build it with people that want to be here."
right,
And the moment you mention transfer portal, all right, cool. Well, when no practice time, probably don't even show up to the field at that point, right? You
right,
you are now no longer a member of this football team,
right.
and and I
He
think
was
that sends a message.
no, it does send a message. He was also saying something that stuck out to me is that um we're not building a culture based on signs. We're not
Yeah,
tapping play to win on the way out. We're not doing that. We're not wearing win at all cost t-shirts. You're gonna strap up, and you're gonna be a part of this family, and you're going to you're gonna hold yourself accountable. You're gonna hold your players and your group behind you accountable, and we're gonna go out there and we're gonna ball. And so I think within that 15, maybe 20-minute interview, there was a lot being said there, just off that small interview. And Sark has done a lot of interviews, and I've caught quite a few, but that one in particular, that stuck out to me a lot.
yeah. No, I think all of his interviews have been that way, and I think
Right,
again, he's not just building a culture, but he's living the culture, and
right,
that culture is you're either a Longhorn or you're not.
right,
Now, the only thing, and I've said this a multitude of times in the last 3-4 weeks we've been live, the
right,
only thing that is missing from the start equation, I guess you could say, is W's on the field.
right,
The culture is great. The recruiting is great. Developing players is it's going to happen.
right,
We'll see if he's actually able to develop his players. We'll really be able to see that this year. At
right,
the end of the day, none of that matters if this team does not win the Big 12. And
right,
it's Big 12 or bust to me. There's nothing that can convince me.
right. At this point, you have to go out on top. It's it's
Yep.
it's a it's not a win or go home. This is like this. The Big 12 was a big deal when it started. How are you going to leave it? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Nobody's going to remember. People remember the national championship teams. People remember the national championship team that played against Alabama. That's about it. They're not going to remember. They're not going to remember all of those other years because those other years have been dominated by Oklahoma. But what you can tell, what the casual fan is going to remember is who was the last player or who was the last team to win the Big 12 before Texas and OU took a hike and got up out of there. They're going to remember.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
it's leaving that lasting legacy. We do know that the SEC is the dominant division. It is the best division in football. So how you leave going into the SEC, that could say a lot. Going in and winning that thing on the way into the SEC could say a lot. That could do a lot for recruiting. You win the SEC, I'm sorry, you win the Big 12 going into the SEC play, man, that could do a lot for recruiting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree there.
Right. All right. So we did start a segment last week where we wanted to kind of break down the schedule, and we decided to do it in a different way where we would basically break down the schedule on a 3-week basis. So right now we're on week 2. We discussed what the first 3 games are going to be, and we discussed what we thought based on what we know right now. What we're doing the paper. We're doing paper championships right now. We're doing paper predictions right now. But
Yep.
it's all in good fun. Do you want to go over the first 3 games and kind of do a little quick recap and move on to the second one, or you want to go
Let's
straight
do
to
it.
the second one? Okay.
No, let's recap.
Okay. So we know that Rice is the first one on the helm. As we all think, that first game is usually a pretty simple game. I don't like saying that because we've seen Appalachian State. So we don't want to just say that that's cooked food, but you know, one thing you don't ever want to lose to is food. You don't ever want to lose to rice. So rice is on the board. We definitely feel like rice will be a stepping block up to the big game, which is Alabama versus Texas. Will be in Tuscaloosa to play against the Alabama Crimson Tide. They have a new quarterback that will be taking the helm, and a couple other new pieces there. So they're actually very young right now. We both think with the we both think that with the depth chart and how things are going as far as the leadership and the position battles with that team, we definitely see Texas coming out on top against Alabama. And then that next game, they would play Wyoming. We
Yep.
believe that Wyoming also, again, one of the easier teams on the schedule, will actually take a losses there as well. So we have Texas going 3-0 throughout the first 3 weeks of the season. So now we're moving on to the next set of three games here. Do you want to go first? You want to talk about those next three games there, or what?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we
Okay,
could start with Baylor, right? So we go to Waco, which will be the Big 12 opener this year.
right. That'll be
Make
September
a
23rd.
make a good old trip to McLean Stadium, which is a nice stadium, by the way.
It is
Drive by it
really,
all
it's
the time.
actually a beautiful stadium.
It's a very very nice stadium.
Right.
Baylor's a tricky. This is one of those tricky teams, right? I think it's the first. You get Big 12 play started on the road, and we know historically this team has not been a good road team, right?
Right.
They did pull off a couple road wins at the end of last year, kind of again
Mhm.
build that confidence, head into the offseason on a high note.
Right.
But Baylor is also one of those teams that they're hoping to make some noise again as well this year, and say that they had a down year last year, and they want to see
Mhm.
they want to see if they can get there, right? So
Right.
I do think it's going to be a tough game. I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any means. I
Mhm.
do think Texas wins a very close one here. Um,
Okay.
I do think Texas wins, and I do think it's going to be a close game.
Okay. Um. So I will say, and I'm gonna say that Texas wins this game as well. However, this could come down to, this is one of those games, like you said, is really shaky. We have historically, I wouldn't say historically, in the last 10 years, going to Baylor has been not so great.
No, it hasn't.
Where
Yep.
it has not been great. I can always think back to what was that, 2 or 3 years ago, where we went in again, had a great half. We come
Yep.
back, just laid an egg. Baylor wins the football game, and they snapped this crazy streak of like, what is, like 10 or 15 years of Baylor not even coming close to beating Texas, and that just gets completely snapped. So, and I think it was at home. That game was at home. Baylor was not
Yeah.
really good at DKR at all, and they finally snapped that streak. So, that I think it's gonna be one of those games where it's gonna be a little tight, and I'll tell you why. I believe it's gonna be tight because I think what can happen, and it does happen, and again, this is not with just Texas in general. This happens all over college football, all over football and sports in general. When you see an opponent that you had an issue with before, you tend to start to look and creep over and start to look, oh, well, next week we got Kansas, which in the last 2 or 3 years have been a significant thorn. Same kind of issue with Texas. They did not have a great win streak against Texas at home. They come in, they win, and there you go. Now you got Kansas beating up on Texas in a football game where normally people would go in, they just sit back, have a beer, and just relax, thinking this is going to be an easy game. That was not the
Yep.
case a couple of years. So, um, that is what I think is going to happen. I think that Texas could get a little bit antsy. They blast Wyoming out of the water. They get to Baylor and they're looking at Kansas instead of focusing on Baylor. I hope that Sark reels them in after that Wyoming win and really hunkers down with Big 12, because you don't want to start the Big 12 0-1. That doesn't look good. So I'm gonna say that Texas wins. They win narrowly, but they win the game. But Kansas, I'm gonna say Kansas is going to lose. Here's why I'm gonna say Kansas is going to lose, because we still don't necessarily know how healthy Kansas' starting quarterback is after he had suffered major injury last year to tearing his ACL. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he took
Yeah.
a major injury last year, and we don't necessarily know what he looks like because he got injured around this time frame, which is September 30th. So,
Yeah. Well, Jalen Daniels came back for Texas last year, if you remember, and Texas won that game pretty comfortably last year. He was
right.
I don't remember if it was maybe it was an ACL strain.
Maybe.
He was out
I just
for
remember.
maybe
I
5 or
remember it was
6
lower
weeks.
leg, and it looked really nasty.
Yep, it looked nasty. It ended up being a strain. He comes back against Texas, does not perform well, if I remember correctly.
No, not
Texas
100%.
won that pretty comfortably last year. Now it was 2 years ago where Kansas came into Texas,
right,
and they won that crazy overtime game.
That
last
was
year,
won by catching a touchdown.
Yep. Last year, Texas wins comfortably 55-14. You mentioned you don't want to overlook Baylor heading into Kansas. I don't think you want to overlook Kansas heading into OU, because OU is right after that. Right? You got a home game. And again, you kind of mentioned it. Sark's got to reel his guys in. You really have to focus 1 week at a time.
Right.
I think they do that this year. I think I'm putting my hopes in the culture and a player-led culture, which is something that's new for Texas in this era. It's actually new for Texas after a long time. I think they take care of business against Kansas at home.
Okay.
And they win that one pretty comfortably. Jalen Daniels, and again, I think it's going to be on the backs of this defense. I think this defense is going to be expected to perform very well in key situations at a high level.
He's right.
5 weeks into the season for sure.
Right. Yeah. He's a mobile quarterback. He can get around. He is very, very fast. And
very good.
He can drop a ball on a dime. We got to see it. We got to see it ahead of that Texas game, where a lot of people forget Kansas before coming to UT, they were undefeated. They
started 6-0 last year.
Yeah, there was real talks about what Kansas was doing, and they weren't playing cupcakes. They were in Big 12 play before we were. They was doing some numbers, and they were putting up a lot of points. And this was all because of the quarterback. So in that new coach. So again, there are things that are happening within the Big 12, whether you think they're good or bad, but their culture is being changed and brought in. Les Miles was not doing this at Kansas. He was not performing like this. So to have a new coach come in with a new regime and turn the team around in a year says a lot. We both have Baylor, we both have Kansas. Now we get to the big shot. This is the staple game. I think there are 2 games or 3 games out of the year where you have those moments, where you make those moments, where you have an audience, right? Big 12, Red River Shootout, Red River Rivalry, whatever you want to call it. This is the game outside of the Alabama game. Honestly, I think Oklahoma gets boat raced again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
It does not seem that, and again, if you guys are there that are Oklahoma fans, feel free to chime in. You guys can chime in on YouTube or wherever you're watching us at, Twitter, whatever the case you're watching us at. It just does not seem that they're ready for the season. They don't seem prepared. Tech seems prepared. Texas seems prepared. Everybody else seems to be prepared. Oklahoma does not seem to be prepared. It just feels like they're trying to figure out what's going on. Or maybe they're just preparing. Maybe they've checked out. I don't know. But just like watching Brett Venables, watching the quarterbacks, like listening to these, going back and reviewing like Big 12 media, they just don't seem to have it together. And they don't sound confident at all. So other than what they got on, what their players are wearing. So I saw a clip of that's basically was the highlight of their Big 12 media days, is what they had on. But other than that, they just don't seem like they even care about being in the Big 12 anymore. Because
they
things.
There is a clip, and this is Oklahoma fans are weird, by the way. That's a weird group of fans. There's a clip of Oklahoma.
Who's Oklahoma fans or A&M fans?
A&M fans, no doubt about it, 100%. A&M fans, they yell and they think, I don't know, they do this weird yell thing, and that's just strange. Yeah, so yeah, that'd be a great matchup. Who's the weirdest school? And they could probably go back and forth all day, because that's a weird school. But anyway, back to Oklahoma. First off, shout out to Brent Venables, his wife, who was recently diagnosed with cancer. He announced this week. Wish her the best. That sucks. Cancer is going around. So wish her the best, and hopefully she makes a full recovery.
Yeah,
but
for
sure. Yeah, Oklahoma's weird. There was a clip earlier today that I saw, and I guess they were revealing the weight room. And you remember that clip of the USC when they came out of the tunnel, like looking at, they were like on all fours and they're like dogs, like Rottweilers and stuff like that.
Right.
Oklahoma was doing that for their weight room today.
Right. That was weird. That was very weird.
Yeah, they're weird. Okay, they're also boring. And so I think Oklahoma gets boat raced again, because they're more excited about the weight room than they are about performing on the field. So I don't know if it's going to be 49-0, because I do think Dylan Gabriel is better than whatever they rolled out in the field last year. I do see us putting up easily 40 points, and I don't think that's going to be a 2-half game this year again. I think we're going to be sipping beers in the second half of Buckers this year again.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Or wherever we make it, right? So
that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's a year. That's a 6-0 start.
Right. Right. So at the 6-0 start, like what do we think, or what do you think rankings are concerned? We really don't really want to put too much emphasis on that, because rankings really don't really take effect until about week 8. But at this point in time, I think Texas rolls into Oklahoma as a top 10 team. I think
I would argue they might roll in as a top 5.
Right. Yeah. I think you roll.
I think they roll. Yeah, because I think so. Again, preseason polls don't mean anything.
No, they don't.
Don't get your panties in a wad. But I think I've seen some preseason polls that have Texas in the top 10, right. Already.
I think it's like right at number
probably 2. In that 8. No, probably not like that 8 to 10 range. I've even seen some 7s. There's a lot of hype around this Texas. Like I said, this is the most excited. Obviously, the national media always blows up Texas. They do a great job of doing that. I'm actually looking at SI Fan Nation. Texas is ranked number 5 heading into the season.
Whoa!
Now, is Texas the 5th best team heading into the season? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think so.
They're definitely top 10. I'd rather than be top 10 heading into Alabama, beating Alabama, and then getting into the top 5.
I think that there are 5 teams that can beat Texas right now. Ohio State.
Yep.
I definitely think Ohio State can do it. believe it or not, I think Michigan can do it.
Yep.
I think USC can do it with Caleb
Oh yeah.
Williams.
Yep.
I think Georgia for sure.
Yep.
And I also believe that did I say Michigan already?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm gonna throw
I could
LSU
even
in
see,
there.
I mean LSU and Bama, yeah. So
Yeah.
you could intertwine either one of those, however you're feeling in the day. I think they're
Yeah.
very capable of beating Texas. Right now.
I
From
yeah.
a week one's perspective, yes.
This is us not knowing what adjustments Sark has made in his coaching staff.
Right.
Because you're not just going to go up on these. And you know what? I think they could beat all of them today. I think they could lose to all of them today and be up by double digits at some point in every one of those games. It's very realistic because that's just where Texas is right now. Right.
Okay.
They've blown way too many double digit leads last year. Because if Texas doesn't blow a double digit lead, I think they lose like one game. And I think that was TCU.
Yeah, TCU was a rough game. TCU was definitely a rough.
For both teams, that was a brutal game. A defensive, unexpected defensive slobber knocker. I don't know. It
was very low scoring, but man, did they have opportunities to score, then they left them on the table. So, okay, just a quick recap here. Week one, we got Texas beating Rice. We have Texas beating Alabama. We have Texas beating Wyoming. We have Texas beating Baylor in week two of our schedule predictions. We got Texas beating Kansas, and we got Texas beating Oklahoma. So right now, week three, we would be looking at U of H, BYU, and Kansas State. And I got a shocker for you. But we'll keep you guys updated. Again, make sure you guys just follow us and tune into the Longhorn Fan Battle podcast next week as we'll go into week three and we'll do updates on that on the next three on week three in the next three games coming up on the schedule. So quickly, we kind of want to get into the recruiting updates. We talked about, some updates that we got recently. It's been kind of quiet on the Western Front, as recruiting is kind of slowed down to a halt now, basically. And, a couple of players have made their announcements, but as far as, recruiting is gone, everybody's moved on from that and everybody's focused on fall camp. So I'm going to let you take over with the recruiting battles as you got a bit more information on the updates as far as days and possible teams, with the latest recruiters. So,
yeah, there's really only one recruiting battle that's out there, and that announcement is coming next week, a week from today. The big dog, the guy that can change the entire 2024 class, Colin Simmons. Duncanville has their they do like an event for like where all their top guys announce their recruits. I believe the running back is supposed to pick between A&M, Oklahoma, LSU, maybe. Of course, Colin Simmons is supposed to announce between LSU, Texas, and Miami, right?
Miami.
So that's coming next week. I think from what I'm hearing and what I saw earlier today, I think Miami feels like they're out of it. So from what the Miami media is saying, they feel like they're out of it at this point. So it really is a two-team race, and both schools go very confident, right?
Right.
Even after, so he made his official visit to LSU last week,
right?
And they believe that they're pretty high. Chances are pretty high. Texas is still feeling confident. They think they still have this cat in the bag. There's some people that think that Texas have this in the bag. There's some people that have already predicted that he's going to Texas.
Right. It was a very interesting weekend in regards to just him in general, because even after the LSU visit, man, I basically heard like LSU in Texas, yeah, they've got it in the bag, but from what we've been hearing, it's all Texas all the way, even on an unofficial visit. And so that was kind of shocking because you normally don't hear stuff like that, especially not on the weekend. But coming out of the weekend, they were like that was the big news. It's like, Simmons still targeted to come to the University of Texas, even though he just finished his LSU visit. And I was just like,
Yeah.
wow, like that's a bold statement to make after coming out of an official visit.
The one thing I'll say is I don't think it matters where he goes or commits to next week. I think that's one of those where you have to keep an eye out throughout the entire recruiting, the second half, heading into December. Because I do think he can flip. He can commit to Texas next week and then flip to LSU.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Right. I also believe that again, there are a number of players that are, they still basically have time to make their decision. But I also believe that, and we've seen it before, where these players start to kind of come in like packs and waves and stuff. So like, yeah, let's say Simmons commits to LSU. If Simmons commits to LSU, then who's to say that another Duncanville player or another top 10 recruit, decides, oh, I want to go play with Simmons at LSU. So it can start a trickle effect either way. It could go either Texas, it can go LSU, it could go Miami. We don't necessarily know, and that's why this is such a big deal, because making that announcement so early gives other players and other teammates that have the opportunity to come and play at these schools an option to say, you know what? I said I was going to go to Oklahoma, but my boy finna go play at Texas, or my boy finna go play at LSU. Let me see what they're talking about. Did I get an offer from Oklahoma? I mean, from LSU or Texas? Let me see. Is it still open? Let me check. And that can start a whole wave of things. So that is definitely something that we're going to keep. I mean, he is one of the bigger recruits. Of course, you still got Kobe Black out there. They're making their announcements later on this year. But who's to say that one commitment doesn't sway their opinion or sway their thoughts? So it's definitely something that we want to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, don't get it twisted. Colin Simmons is the dominant, right?
Right. He's a dominant. He's a dominant.
Yep. So yeah, Cody Black is supposed to announce soon as well.
Right.
I just don't remember when on the date right now.
Right.
But he will be the domino. Colin Simmons will be the domino effect.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we've covered everything we need to cover here. Any partying shots before we head up out of here?
Oh yeah, real quick.
All right.
Ohio State, stop gambling. All right.
Oh. But like always, guys, make sure you follow fanbattlesports.com to get, we have a number of podcasts there, whether if you're a Longhorn fan, Texans fan, Colts fan, or just a fan of sports podcasting in general. That is your hub for all things Texans, Longhorns football. That is all things Texas sports. Make sure you guys tune in with us weekly. Make sure you guys follow us on the Longhorn Fan Battle Twitter account. Make sure you guys like, share, comment, and subscribe. Leave some feedback in the comments, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know how you feel about it, what we can improve on. If you just want to talk trash, feel free to hit us up. At the bottom there, you can see our Twitter handles there. You can, again, follow us at Longhorn Fan Battle. You got the Uncle Gandhi. You got me, Tim Wayne. Anything else, my man?
Go Horns.
Go Horns. Till Gabriel. And with that being said, my man, take us out. We'll see you next week. Welcome.
Peace.
Go home. Touchdown like the end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone. Go hard, go home.